Okay, we're recording. Hi, you guys. Thank you for joining me today. For those of you who are just opening this link and joining us, I'm Lisa Olson, the Senior Warden right now at St. Stephen's during this season of transition for us. And I've invited Bruce Chabot and Mary Robbins, our interim priests, to join us just to have a conversation and have you get to know them a little bit. They've both been a part of St. Stephen's for a long time, and so many of you already know Bruce and Mary, but some may know Bruce and not Mary, or some may know Mary but not Bruce. So we thought we'll just have a little chat and invite you guys to listen in. So this is unrehearsed and we're doing this in one take, so just roll with this, okay? So I just would like to hear you each tell a little bit about your story of what brought you to this place where you are here at St. Stephen's serving us right now. What brought you on this journey to now? Let's start with you, Bruce. I'll choose you.
Okay, well, great. Thank you. And I'm very glad that anybody would want to know such things.
Mm-hmm.
I've lived here in Huntsville for around 7 years, and during that time I've been helping as a supply priest in various parishes around the area within about a 100-mile reach. So I've been to a lot of parishes and celebrated a lot of events and services with them, but I always felt in my heart that St. Stephen's is my parish. It's where I can pray and relax and be myself. And so I've always enjoyed that. And so I'm very, very happy that we're at this point where I can help out on a regular basis. And one thing that I want to include in the conversation is people here in this parish. It's a very, very well-informed bunch of folks. People here in St. Stephen's, they're well educated, and even if it's not a box brain book reading type of education, people here are very well informed. They know what they think and what they feel, and I think they feel heard. So that's something that I'm really excited about. Is I hope that people continue to be themselves and express themselves, and to know that other people may be seeing and hearing Jesus in them.
Mm-hmm.
But when I talk to the two of you or anybody else, any individual person, I hope that people will know that I or somebody else experiences and hears Jesus through them, through you.
Thanks, Bruce. All right, Mary, can you talk a little bit with regard to your story? What brought you to this place?
Oh my. Well, I've always been a seeker. I grew up, my grandparents were very religious people. They were Southern Baptist, so I was raised in that tradition. But then when I reached college, I started looking at other areas and other denominations. And when my husband and I lived in Fort Worth, we did go to the Episcopal Church there at Trinity and loved it, found a home. When we moved here in 1990, we went to the Methodist Church because we felt our son needed a good community of people. But when he kind of moved on, Lynn and I moved to St. Stephen's, and I think we've been members at St. Stephen's since about 1994, 95, something like that. And I felt like I had truly reached home. The community was warm, welcoming, and very encouraging for me to continue my spiritual journey. And I took advantage of everything that the diocese has to offer in terms of growing in my spiritual discipline. So I went to fine school and became a spiritual director, and I ended up going to Iona to become a bivocational priest. specifically because I wanted to work with the students. I had been working with them for a while, and I just felt that there was something else that I could do to help them. So I've never had the opportunity, other than in internships, to work in a parish ministry. The bishop, Bishop Andy, had always encouraged me to consider that. And now that I'm retired, I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I'm so happy to be able to serve the people that I love so much in this community.
Thank you. Since you mentioned Len, I'll go back to you on this question. Just tell us a little bit about your family.
Len and I are a blended family. It's a second marriage for both of us. He has 2 grown daughters, and I have 1 grown son. They're all grown and away from home. And he's my rock.
How long have you guys been married?
We have been married. Okay, let me think about this. Len, how long have we been married?
That's a good question. 32 years, I think it was 1988.
32 years, okay.
Awesome, great, thank you. Bruce, tell us about your family.
Well, I have 3 siblings scattered over various places in Texas. And so we text a lot, but I guess now we'll be Zooming or face-facing more. But anyway, I'm also very conscious of my dad, who is getting long in the tooth, who lives in Corpus Christi, where I grew up. He still lives in the same house where I grew up with his new wife. And as far as me, it's just me and my daughter, Claire. She's 25. She's a graduate student here at SAM in the psychology department. And she checks on me almost every day. And I'm very glad about that. Before quarantine, she used to come see me frequently. But I'm glad that she's taking quarantine seriously. But she's the greatest thing in my life. And I tell you, she makes me feel happy, because as a parent, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to raise children who are better than you are. And I feel good about that. I have raised a daughter who is a better person than I am. So I feel very blessed about that.
That's great. So I know you moved to Huntsville to be near her. So talk a little bit about your non-ministry vocational pursuits and what you do when you're not being a priest.
Good point.
I guess you're always a priest, but when you're not acting as a priest.
Yeah. Well, when I'm not doing priestly functions, I'm an English teacher. Some people use the word professor. So here at SAM, the English department is varied. It's a colorful group of folks. And I teach now. In the past, I taught at A&M for almost 20 years. And I got to teach lots of fun classes there, like Bible as literature and English literature and world literature. But here at SAM, what they need the most is freshman composition. That's the most in-demand course that we have. So that's what I do here at SAM. I teach 2 halves of freshman composition. And to me, though, it's very similar, because what you do in English classes, like the ones I teach, is you look at the meanings of communication in written words. And that's the same thing as how we Christians benefit from the Bible. We look at the meaning of those words. So to me, they're the same thing. You can't do one without the other. You can't study literature without studying the Bible, and you can't study the Bible without studying literature. So to me, they're just so well related. I have a wonderful time with it.
That's awesome. Mary, you mentioned that you were ordained as a bivocational priest. So tell us about your other vocation.
Well, I am a retired educator and administrator. I spent 30 years at SAM and retired a little over a year ago. And since then, I've been doing my watercolor and reading and cleaning the house,
Mm-hmm.
playing with my dog.
What was your field of study that you taught at SAM?
I was in the College of Education and taught reading and language arts training classes.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to hear a little bit from each of you about your call to ministry and your personal faith journey. Some would say your testimony a little bit. And Bruce, I'm going to go back and start with you because I know at a very young age you recognized a call to ministry. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, that's a point. I've always known all my life that the priesthood would be my vocation. When I look back on it now, and even though things change in life, everybody changes, everything changes, but I do remember that in high school when we had career day and you were supposed to dress up like the career that you wanted, you know, some of my friends would wear doctor coats or whatever, and I wore a clergy collar shirt. So I've been silly about that all my life, and went straight from college to the seminary to being ordained. And I was, I've had a lot of experiences, even though I've woven together the two fields, as we talked about, my study in English and literature and my study of theology and the Bible. I've had some experiences that I would like to invite people to ask me. Like when I was in the Navy, I was a chaplain in the Navy. I had some amazing experiences, really, that opened my heart in many ways. And I don't want to take up the time in this particular context, but I would invite people. If anybody wants to ask me something that I think is interesting, ask me about that. Ask me to tell you some of my Navy stories. And also with Boy Scouts, I've been a chaplain in Boy Scouts, and when I was a kid, I was a Boy Scout. Then I was an adult Scout leader, and now I'm pretty much finished with it. I don't really have that much time for that anymore, but there again, I had wonderful, wonderful memories. And if you'll permit me to reiterate one thing, it's that I said a few minutes ago, people hear Jesus speaking through each other, and I'm moved to reiterate that because I was in a parish where I worked some years ago. You know, I've worked in several parishes over the years, obviously. I passed through a room where Dad was talking to his son and giving him some moral explanation, and they didn't know that I heard a moment of their conversation, but that was the kind of thing that just made me realize, you know, Jesus is still talking. God is still talking, and it's through the person next to you at some point that you experience him.
Great. Thank you. Mary, you talked a little bit about your background as a child and then coming to Episcopalian as an adult, not so very long ago. But and you mentioned student ministry too, but what else excites you about this call to ministry at St. Stephen's?
Oh, what excites me is being with a community of believers that support and nurture each other so much. It's just a wonderful thing to be a part of that. You know, my experience wasn't like Bruce's. I didn't know very early that I wanted to be a priest. It's kind of felt like Jonah a little bit. I was trying to run away, and every time I moved this way or that way, I was always found. And then as I kind of leaned into that experience, it became clearer and clearer what I was being called to do. So for some people, it's something that they know automatically, and for others like me, it just takes a lifetime of being nudged to be able to move forward. But it just feels right to have this parish experience right now in my life. I really feel Jesus is called to do that.
I love hearing you talk about that and the different conversations we've had, because I mean, that's exactly what we need right now. You know, we need someone who desires what you desire. That's what we need right now. It's just like a pairing that I feel like it's an incredible blessing that both of you are already part of our community and our congregation, and both have just enough bandwidth available to be able to work together to meet a need for a season. And I love how God has kind of woven each of your stories together with the story of St. Stephen's for such a time as this, as it were. All right, I'm going to change the subject. You know, part of what I'm hoping will come out of this is connection points. Bruce, as you were just saying, we have a lot of other veterans in our congregation who may enjoy chatting with you about that, or wherever people intersect. So tell me what you do for fun, what your leisure life looks like. If you have a sports team that you are, you know, an avid fan, or an author that you have enjoyed immensely, just give us some touch points like that. Mary, I'll start with you.
Oh, okay. Well, I love watercolors. I'm self-taught and have been doing it for about 3 years. And I think I'm getting better. I'm not sure, but we'll see. I love reading and I love mysteries. I love mysteries. So if anybody has any good recommendations, send them my way. I love that. I don't know whether this is a hobby, but it's something, I think it's a vice. I binge watch TV. I stream. I don't watch the regular TV. But I love British dramas and crime shows. So I have a subscription to Acorn, and I can pretty much be found watching a lot of streaming TV.
Okay, good.
Lately, anyway.
Bruce.
Well, I used to go camping a lot. That was, you know, part of being in Boy Scouts, but I used to go camping even with friends quite a lot. I can't anymore because my health just doesn't really support that anymore, but I still like to go hiking, walking, and reading really is my main hobby, always has been. And I love to read adventure novels, spy novels. Historical fiction actually is something that I think people may overlook sometimes, and maybe they should look into. William F. Buckley, he writes great historical fiction. But also science fiction. I'm a huge, huge fan of all science fiction literature, particularly Star Trek. If anybody wants to know me, you should know I'm the Star Trek guy. Some people relate everything in life to an episode of Jerry Seinfeld. To me, everything in life relates to an episode of Star Trek.
That's awesome. Shortly after I moved here, I went to a production at the community theater that you and Helen Farah were both a part of. Was it called Proof? Is that the name of that?
Yes.
Yes. So has theater been a part of your experience for a long time, or did someone just talk you into that?
Well, yes. In fact, I've always enjoyed being in community theater. I've directed some plays, including a nice Shakespeare, King Lear. But I've acted really in community theater ever since I was young. And I really honestly can't say how many plays I've been in because I lost count over the years. It's been so many. But now, of course, there's no way for people to be in a room together because of social distancing. But yes, that I enjoyed community theater tremendously.
Good. So I didn't give you this question ahead of time, but since you brought up social distancing, how would people who just want to spend some time with either of you, how would they make that happen? We'll post with this your contact information, your cell number, and your email address. But would you sit with someone in a park at two ends of a table, or would you Zoom with people? Would you like to meet people at church where you could be social distance? what are some ways that you may have thought of that you could begin to be a part of people's lives even during this time?
I would say yes. All of the things that you just enumerated are yes, absolutely true. Because each of us is going to have some time at the church where we're available there. And also, Mary, am I right in thinking that everything she just said is a yes?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll just let people reach out to you then. We've put on, we'll also attach to this your schedules again. Both of you work on Sundays and Wednesdays, and both are off on Mondays, but other days, some of you, either of you is on and either of you is off. So, and we've also published, you've kind of divided up what responsibilities or roles at church you're going to try to be available for or be a resource for. So we'll publish that again too. People have questions, but you guys are working together, right? Can you just talk a little bit about how you've discussed collaborating so far?
Well, I'm responsible for the Student Center, and so I'm going to continue what Kalora started with them. I'm going to do hours there, Priest on the Porch, on Thursdays from probably about 9:30 to 11, and just to be there in case anybody wants to just stop by and visit. And Bruce is going to be working in the office at church on Fridays. I may join him occasionally, but I think most of my time is probably going to be Wednesday mornings.
Okay. Bruce, any other thoughts to add?
No, I second that emotion, everything that Mary just said. And I will get us a cup of tea or ice water or whatever helps.
Great. So just my last question. I'd like to hear both of you just talk about this season that we're in of transition and kind of what your hopes or your desires are for St. Stephen's as we, are in this kind of unsettling period of transition, but also overlapped with that we're in a global pandemic and not gathering at the same time. It's a challenging time to be an interim priest, I would guess, but what do you hope for us?
What I hope for is that we will continue to find ways to be together even though we can't be together. And that as a community of followers of Christ, we will invent and perhaps reinvent what it means to be a church during this time, so that when we get past this, we're going to come together and be closer than we were before and have a way and just feel comfortable that we've survived this and that we have something that we can offer back to the community. And at morning coffee, people were talking about, you were mentioning mission work and what that might look like. And I think that's so important right now. It's so easy to think about ourselves during this pandemic, but we really need to turn that outward and look for ways that we can help other people. And I think we can do that during this time.
Thanks for saying that. I agree. I think when we focus inward, we can feel sorry for ourselves, but as soon as you focus outward, you can see other people are so much worse off than we are, and it just changes that. Bruce, how about you? What do you hope for this time?
What I hope for is for everybody to take this opportunity where we're being forced to be aware of the fact that the church, when we use the word church, the church is not the building made of bricks down there on Sam Houston Avenue. It's not the people who wear a black shirt or a white collar or a fancy white dress during the service. None of that is the church. The church is the people who sit in the first pew and the people who sit in the second pew and the people who sit in the third pew and all the way to throughout the building. The people are the church. It's always been that way ever since the first people gathered. The people are the church. And now we're being forced to see that we may not all be at the same place at the same time, but we're still all the church. So I just would hope that people would feel buoyed by that confidence and great responsibility and joy, knowing that wherever you are the church. You and the rest of the folks, you are the church.
Great. All right, I think we've reached the end of our capacity for people's attention span, so we'll sign off. But the last thing I just would want to make sure everyone knows is that neither Bruce nor Mary are a candidate to be our next rector by their choice, but that's one of the requirements for interim priests, is that they're not also candidates. So I just want to make that clear. They're not auditioning for the job, if you will. Like, they have no other agenda other than to be your priest right now and to serve you and love you however you need to be served and loved. And they also don't have any responsibility for running the business of the church or anything to do with the search committee or the process of replacing a rector. They have a single focus, and that is to be our priest during this season. So no other agendas, nothing like that. So just please get to know them, reach out to them, and let them get to know you. All right, thanks you guys. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.